Update. Dad wants to do a memorial for my sister at my wedding, but I'd rather she wasn't mentioned. Original post. I know the title sounds bad. I was hoping people might be able to assess this objectively and give suggestions, especially if they've been at weddings with memorials before. Unfortunately for me, this is a trickier situation than I'd like because of who my sister was. I'm changing small details to make it harder to identify this situation if anyone I know happens across it. My younger sister passed away last year. She was an adult but young, and it was sudden. I don't want to go into too much detail, but she made some bad choices that contributed to her short life. She was also not well mentally. She had an extremely tumultuous relationship with my mom and me. Some ups, but mostly very nasty downs, especially during years when we tried to save her from herself. On the other hand, my dad was often idealized by her, and they had a better relationship. My fiancé did not have a good relationship with her either. Her final years and death were traumatic for our whole family. It's especially impacted my dad. Since she passed, my dad has made a point of eulogizing her at every family event we've had to remember her and make sure she was present. It's always been difficult for both my mom and me because I have a lot of intense, difficult emotions surrounding her and her passing. I always cry for hours, and I end up feeling downhearted and out of sorts for days after each one of these surprise memorial events. My dad will be the officiant at our wedding. It's very soon. I only recently learned that he plans to memorialize her during the ceremony and in his toast. I really don't want him to do this, but he's extremely resistant because he doesn't want to pretend like she was never here. I will admit that it is childish for me to feel bitter about someone who is no longer here, but growing up, I had a lot of events hijacked by her causing some incident, and now it feels like it's happening again, even when she's passed. If we had a better relationship, I might have been more okay with taking a moment to remember her, but my dad tends to lionize her and has a selective memory where he's forgotten everything bad. He was shocked when I said I wasn't comfortable with her being mentioned in a speech. Outside of my own baggage, my fiancé certainly doesn't want her mentioned. This is not just a my side of the family event like the previous memorials. I also fear it will bring down what's supposed to be a happy time and make the guests sad or uncomfortable. I want to try to compromise with him by having my mom, he and I wear yellow jewelry in discreet places to remember her. Yellow was her favorite color. But I'm not sure if he'd be okay with this because it's too secret. Long story short, how can I let my dad feel like we're honoring my sister's memory without upsetting my mom, my fiancé, and myself too much to enjoy the day? I'm at a loss, and it's hard for me to approach this objectively. Now for the top comments before reading the update. Respectfully, can you speak to him about how him mentioning her may be how he deals with his grief, but it's not how you're managing it? That he doesn't need to make his grief center stage? Can you also ask him maybe not to officiate? Then at least it's not in your ceremony. It's a delicate situation, but it is you and your fiancé's day, so you need to have it your way. My mother and I have both tried to talk about how we process grief differently, especially given how difficult our relationships with my sister were. That's part of why I wasn't expecting him to do this at this event, because he did it for my birthday, and I had to talk about how hard that was. Unfortunately, I guess I didn't make the impression that I thought I did. I don't want to ask him to step down as the officiant, because I think that would really hurt him and cause more problems than just letting this happen. I just hope I can find some compromise that allows him to feel like he's not forgetting about his other daughter, without making me too depressed to be a good wife to my fiancé or hostess to my guests. It really messes with me when I think about her death too much. If your father can't find a level of pure joy and respect for you on your wedding day, he should not be officiating. Also, it is not just a day for you and your family, it is your husband-to-be's day as well. Don't allow him to continue her funeral at your wedding. Absolutely, it would be horrible for my fiancé. I can't let that happen. Just sucks to be in this situation, but I'll figure something out. Thanks to you and the others giving a reality check. May I ask how soon is very soon? I'm thinking it may be best to get another officiant despite the fact it would add more work to your plate last minute. You deserve to have the day you want, and for all of the focus to be on you and your fiancé. Unfortunately, it's a matter of days. That's why I haven't just said he shouldn't officiate. Finding someone else this soon would be a bear. And the emotional turmoil of saying he can't officiate would, I think, make things even worse than letting him do the memorial speeches for a variety of reasons. He's also shown that he will just kind of do things to memorialize her, even when he's not in an official position, so I think that wouldn't really stop him if he were determined. That's why I'm hoping that I can find a compromise that's less obtrusive, so he doesn't feel guilty without literally calling everyone's attention to my sister's death. Edit. I need to go to bed, so I won't be replying further, but I wanted to thank the people who offered condolences and advice, and also those who were rightfully saying, "Girl, what are you thinking?" when I said maybe I should just let him do it. I've gotten a lot of great ideas for other ways of remembering people, not just my sister, and ways to handle it if my dad tries anyway. I'm having a serious discussion with him tomorrow, and if I get any hint that he's going to ignore my fiancés and my wishes, then we'll find another efficient. Wish I'd been smart enough to fully settle this issue months ago, instead of days from the wedding, but lesson learned about clear communication there. Thanks again. Now for the update. I received a number of requests for an update to this, so here we are. It's a good update, thankfully. I spoke with my dad the morning after making the post. I tried to emphasize that mentioning my sister's passing in detail at the wedding would be very difficult emotionally for my mother and me, would take away from my fiancé's, now husband's day, and would probably make the guests uncomfortable or saddened. He said he was resistant at first because he's been so afraid of my sister's memory fading away, but that ultimately he understood my concerns. He still wanted her present in some way that wouldn't take away from our day. I offered suggestions that people gave for ways to have her memory present. We decided to have a seat reserved for past loved ones at the ceremony and an empty seat with a name tag for her at the wedding party's table during the reception dinner. My dad was the officiant as originally planned, and he gave a beautiful speech at the ceremony and a heartfelt toast that was focused on the joy of the day instead of the sadness of the past. As far as I'm aware, everyone at the wedding had a wonderful time, and the only tears shed were happy ones. I know that there were multiple commenters who said my dad should be replaced as the officiant no matter what, but I'm glad I didn't do that. After the wedding was over, he gave me a big hug, crying because it meant so much to him that we trusted him to do the ceremony and how happy it made him to be such a big part of the wedding. It meant a lot to my husband and me too. Moral of the story: sometimes it takes a few tries to get it right, but honest and heartfelt communication between everyone involved won the day here. Thanks again to everyone who left advice, comfort, well wishes, and grandma hugs. I did not at all anticipate the interest in my post, but I'm grateful for everyone's comments, even if I ran out of time to reply to everyone. In the end, it was a perfect wedding, and I couldn't be happier with how it turned out. I'm glad they found the right way to frame it without minimizing his grief. Respectfully, the wedding day should not focus on her late sister. We love to see a good update. I remember an AITA post where a woman wrote about how she wanted her eldest daughter, who had died as a child, to be mentioned at her younger daughter's wedding, and the younger daughter flipped out. She said her entire life had been overshadowed by the death of her sister and she just wanted one day to be about her. I'd bet money that mother and daughter are no contact now. The golden child does not actually need to still be present. In many ways, it is much easier to make a deceased child into a saint, since the parents don't need to deal with a real person. I was at a wedding where the father of the bride used his speech to memorialize her late brother. It was incredibly uncomfortable. Instead of celebrating his daughter, the moment became all about the son who had passed. Guests couldn't stop whispering afterwards about how it felt like he was the favorite, and the whole thing turned what could have been a touching tribute into something sad and awkward, leaving people feeling sorry for the bride. I'm glad this bride didn't have to deal with that and got her happy day. At mine, my father-in-law talked about my wife for about 5 minutes, and then his time in the Navy for another 20, and what it means to be a true patriot. Her family was mortified, and most had their hands on their mouths, or were frantically making gestures to shut up already. He was essentially just trying to be selfish. Dude just couldn't write a speech. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my dad I'm changing my name and that I don't exist to be the reincarnation of his mother? 1 month before my mom discovered she was pregnant with me, my paternal grandmother passed away. When my parents found out I was a girl, my dad insisted they name me after my grandmother. As I got older, it became clear I look very much like my grandmother. As a kid, the references and comparisons were nice. I enjoyed hearing stories about my grandma. The comparisons were always complimentary. And then I hit my later teen years. I started doing some things that my family didn't agree with. I chose a college and career path that my dad was not fond of. He began comparing me to my grandmother, but not in a good way. He made it clear I had to live up to her legacy. He said I was going to let her down if I didn't do things the way she had. I was freaked out by this and refused to change what I was doing, and then it continued. I grew out of certain hobbies and was scolded by my dad and his brothers because your grandma enjoyed those. I'd say I didn't anymore, and they'd insist I had to like them because I was just like her. That honestly made me even more done with the hobbies. Before, it was because I simply lost interest and gained new ones. Now, it was because I didn't want to do anything she had, because clearly it'd be held over me for life. When I was in college, I cut my hair differently, and again, they had a freak out. It was at this point that I entered therapy and realized that for years, they had basically been treating me like the reincarnation of their mother. My dad had warped my entire identity to match his mother's. I started questioning if I really liked certain things, if my dad really loved me for me. So, I started exploring myself, trying new things. My dad continued to get upset. Potentially the biggest upset is when I started going by a shortened version of my name. My full name is Lorraine, but I started going by Rain. Some friends had called me this in high school and college as a nickname, but I fully embraced it. My dad and his brothers refused to call me that and would get upset if anyone did. Then I dyed my hair. I still look like her in the face, but my hair was constantly compared to hers, and I know it was a kick to my dad and uncles. I explained why I was doing all of this, and they called me dramatic, but the comparisons never stopped. Now, I'm 27 and I'm getting married next year. My dad recently asked me if I was going to change my last name. I said yes. He begged me to keep it, because even though I go by Rain now, my full legal name is the exact same as my grandmother's. I said I wanted to have the same last name as my husband and any future children we share. I also told him I was using this as an excuse to change my first name legally to Rain. I'll keep my middle name, which again, I share with my grandmother. My dad was very upset and told me I was being spiteful. I said I'm not being spiteful. I'm trying to reclaim my own identity. I pointed out to him that I don't exist to be the reincarnation of his mother, and that maybe if he hadn't pushed the identity so hard on me, I wouldn't feel like I have to do this. He got even more upset and said maybe one day I'll understand how it feels when he's dead. He hasn't spoken to me in a few days, and my mom says I hurt his feelings. She feels like I shouldn't have told him I was changing my first name legally, and I shouldn't have said all of what I did. My fiancé is on my side, so I don't know what to think. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Your father and uncles turned you into a walking memorial for your grandmother instead of treating you like your own person. Your mom is an idiot for allowing him to do this to you. People who turn their children into walking memorials and living monuments to their dead relatives suck. Tell your dad, don't worry, when you die I won't name anything after you. Not the a-hole. It's weird because he keeps hinting I should name my first son after him. My husband is also a junior, and we've both agreed that our kids will be receiving their own unique names. His family understands. My family is not happy that I won't use any of their names. I'm curious, what has your mom and her family thought about all this? Have they even tried to get them to stop comparing you to your father's mother? My mom would tell them not to compare me to her, but they didn't listen. She just thinks I'm being insensitive because I'm actually upholding the boundary. Her family respects me going by Rain and doesn't compare me to her. Some of them knew her and say she isn't worth the hero worship my dad and his brothers give her. Last story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to let my sister's family stay in my house? I, 25 female, bought my first house last year, after years of saving, budgeting carefully, and working 2 jobs to make it happen. It's nothing fancy, just a small 1-bedroom with a tiny living area. But it's mine, and I'm incredibly proud of it. Owning my own place has been one of my biggest goals, and finally achieving it felt like a huge step toward independence and stability. I'm single, child-free, and honestly not planning on starting a family anytime soon. Right now, I just want to focus on myself, traveling, enjoying my hobbies, and building the life I've worked so hard for. A few weeks ago, my older sister, 32 female, called me in a panic. She said their landlord had raised their rent unexpectedly and they couldn't afford it. She asked if she, her husband, and their 2 kids could stay with me just for a week or 2 until they found a new place. I love my sister and my nieces, but my house is really small. It barely fits me comfortably, let alone 4 more people. I explained that I simply don't have the space or resources to host them. She didn't take it well. She accused me of being selfish and heartless, saying I should at least do it for the kids. I told her I understood their situation and wanted to help in another way. I offered to lend her money for their rental deposit, with a clear agreement about repayment. But she refused the offer, saying I was choosing money over family. Then she started guilt-tripping me, reminding me how she used to take care of me when I was younger and that I owe her for that. Now I feel torn. I do feel bad for her and the kids, but I also value my privacy and peace. I finally have a home that's truly mine, and I don't think I should be pressured into giving it up, even temporarily. Am I the a-hole for not letting my sister's family stay at my place? Not the a-hole. Getting them out once they moved in might be a task. You offered them an alternative and they refused. Exactly my concern. I knew once they moved in, it would be hard to ask them to leave. Yeah, why would they leave if they have the option to stay with you rent-free? Basically, you have a house and she wants to make it hers because she thinks she deserves it more than you. Because it's not fair that the younger sibling can buy a house, but she can't. Not the a-hole. You offered a solution and she refused. End of story. Their emergency isn't yours to solve. I didn't really know what else I could offer them, just not staying in my house. Obviously, not the a-hole. Having boundaries doesn't make someone an a-hole. Plus, your house is clearly too small for that many people, even for just a week or 2. We all know 1 to 2 weeks equates to 6 months to a year. 6 months turned into 3 years for me.